The council chamber fell silent when the doors exploded open. Commander Vrath limped inside, his mechanical leg clicking against the polished floor with each step. The old Zelthari warrior had not been seen in these halls for 30 years, not since he retired to a quiet moon on the edge of civilized space. Now he stood before the assembled representatives of 40 species, his scarred face twisted in something between anger and desperation. "You fools," he rasped, his translator struggling with the intensity of his words. "You absolute fools." Ambassador Krell of the Vaxian Empire stood from his seat, his 4 arms spreading wide in a gesture of dismissal. "Commander Vrath, your service is honored, but this session is closed. You plan to attack humanity and you close the session?" Vrath's laugh was bitter and sharp. "I fought beside them once. I watched what they can do. And you want to teach them a lesson?" The Vaxian ambassador's face darkened to an angry purple. "The humans have expanded into 3 contested systems. They ignore our warnings. They refuse to acknowledge established borders. They are newcomers who need to learn respect. Respect." Vrath moved closer to the central platform, dragging his wounded leg. His right arm ended at the elbow, replaced by a simple prosthetic that had seen better days. "Let me tell you about respect. 50 years ago I learned about respect from a species I thought was weak." The council members shifted uncomfortably. Everyone knew Vrath's story, or thought they did. The hero of the Devourer Wars. The warrior who lost half his body saving his battalion. What they did not know were the details. The truth he had kept buried for decades. The Devourers were consuming everything, Vrath continued, his voice growing softer, more dangerous. World after world fell to their hive fleets. My people formed a coalition with 6 other species. We were losing. Then the humans arrived, new to the galaxy, eager to help, bringing their small ships and their slow bodies. He paused, his eyes distant with memory. We laughed at them. In our briefings, we joked about the humans. They could not see as far as us. They could not run as fast. Their reflexes were half the speed of a Xelthari warrior. They were soft things from a gentle world playing at war. Then what changed? Asked a young delegate from the Chorus Collective, genuine curiosity in their melodic voice. "We got surrounded," Vrath said simply. 3 battalions cut off from supply lines. The Devourers had us trapped in a canyon system on Fortis Prime. We had maybe 40 hours of ammunition left. Command said we were acceptable losses. They would remember us as heroes. The chamber was completely silent now. Even Ambassador Krell had sat back down. The human unit was under the command of Captain Maria Santos. She was small even for a human. When she smiled, she looked like she should be teaching children, not leading soldiers. She called for a meeting of all battalion commanders. I expected her to cry, maybe, to beg for a miracle. Instead, she pulled out maps and started talking about probability matrices. Vrath's good hand clenched into a fist. She had already calculated how many of her people would need to die to get the rest of us out. She spoke about it like she was discussing the weather. "If we hold this position for 6 hours, the Devourers will commit 70% of their forces here. That opens Corridor B7. Estimated survival rate for the holding force, 4%. Estimated survival rate for the evacuating forces, 89%. I told her no. I said we would all fight together, die together with honor. She looked at me with those strange human eyes and said, "Commander, honor is a luxury. My people will buy you time. Use it." Then she smiled again, that same gentle smile, and said, "Besides, 4% isn't 0. We've beaten worse odds." The council chamber felt smaller now, the air heavier. The humans held for 9 hours. They fought with weapons that jammed, with ammunition they rationed down to single shots. When their guns ran dry, they fought with knives. When their knives broke, they used rocks and their bare hands. They sang songs while they died. Work songs, love songs, songs about going home. Vrath's voice cracked. Out of 200 human soldiers, 4 survived. Captain Santos was not one of them. She stayed on the communication line until the end, calling out Devourer positions, adjusting our escape route, telling jokes to keep morale up. Her last words were, "Good luck, friends. Give them hell for us." He turned to face Ambassador Krell directly. "We escaped. My entire battalion lived because humans we had mocked died in our place. And you know what haunts me? They were not even angry at us for our disrespect. They just did what they thought was right." "That was war," Krell said, though his voice had lost its certainty. "They were allies then. Now they are competitors. This is different, is it? Vrath asked. You plan to strike their colonies, to kill their civilians to prove a point. Do you know what you are doing? You are giving them a reason to stop being gentle. We have superior numbers, better technology. So did the Devourers, Vrath interrupted. They had ships that could crack planets. They had numbers beyond counting. Where are they now? Extinct. Do you know who led the final assault that destroyed the Devourer home cluster? Humanity. They volunteered for a suicide mission into the heart of enemy territory. 60 ships went in. 3 came back. They killed a species that had survived for 10 million years. Vrath turned toward the door, his mechanical leg clicking with each step. I came here to warn you, to beg you to reconsider, but I can see you have already decided. You think you are strong. You think you understand war. You do not. War is what humans do when they have tried everything else. War is what humans are trying not to do right now, and you are about to make them remember what they are really good at. At the doorway, he stopped and looked back one final time. I fought beside humans once. I owe them my life. So I will tell you the same thing Captain Santos told me. Good luck, friends. You will need it. The door closed behind him, leaving the council in uncomfortable silence. Ambassador Krell called for a vote. The measure passed unanimously. The strike would proceed. In his quarters that night, Vrath recorded a message to his family. I tried to save them, he said to the camera. I tried to stop it. Now all I can do is watch and remember. Remember what happens when you disturb the Earthborn. 3 days later, the Coalition fleet departed for human space. Vrath watched them go from his observation window, and he wept. Fleet Admiral Thexnor stood on the bridge of the battleship Dominance, watching 3 human colony worlds grow larger on the main display. Around his flagship, 600 warships from 6 different species moved in perfect formation. This was the largest military coalition assembled since the Devourer Wars. The humans would learn their place today. All ships report ready, announced his tactical officer, targeting solutions locked on primary population centers. Remember the rules of engagement, Thexnor said calmly. Military targets first. If they surrender within 1 hour, we accept. If not, we proceed to infrastructure. Make this quick and clean. The colony worlds were called New Hope, Perseverance, and Journey's End. Each held between 2 and 5 million human civilians. Intelligence reports showed minimal defensive capabilities. A few orbital platforms, maybe 50 defense fighters, some ground-based missile systems. Nothing that could stand against this fleet. Begin the attack, Thexnor ordered. The first wave of missiles streaked through space, beautiful and terrible in their precision. The human defense platforms fired back, their weapons flashing in the darkness. It was brave but pointless. The platforms exploded one by one, debris spinning into the void. Resistance minimal, reported the tactical officer. Their fighters are launching, but they are falling back. Defense missiles exhausted. Orbital space will be secured in 14 minutes. Thexnor allowed himself a small smile. Perhaps the humans were smarter than Vrath gave them credit for. They would surrender soon, accept reasonable terms, and this would end without unnecessary bloodshed. The old warrior had been wrong. Humans were not special. They were just another species that needed to learn the rules. Admiral, we are receiving communication requests from all 3 colonies, said the communications officer. Put them through, Thexnor said, ready to accept their surrender with dignity. The screens flickered. But instead of frightened colonial governors, the image showed empty command centers, automated systems running on their own. A recorded message began playing on all channels simultaneously. A human woman appeared on screen. She was young, maybe 30 in their years, with dark skin and calm eyes. She wore a simple colonial administrator uniform. To the attacking fleet, she said quietly. You have fired on civilian population centers without declaration of war. You have targeted homes, schools, and hospitals. By doing this, you have violated 47 interstellar conventions. You believe you are teaching us a lesson. You believe we will surrender. The woman's expression did not change, but something in her eyes made Thexnor uncomfortable. You are wrong, she continued. Every civilian in these 3 colonies has been evacuated. The buildings you are destroying are empty. The defenses you are fighting are automated. You are not at war with New Hope. Perseverance or journey's end. You are now at war with Earth. The message ended. The screens went dark. What is she talking about? Thexanor demanded. Scan the colonies. Where are the population signatures? The sensor officer worked frantically at his console. Admiral, I do not understand. The cities are empty. Completely empty. But that is impossible. We would have detected evacuation ships. They had weeks to plan this. The tactical officer said slowly, realization dawning. While we were gathering our fleet, arguing about targets, making speeches, they were evacuating. They knew we were coming. Of course they knew, Thexanor snapped. Our intelligence operations are excellent, but how did they move 5 million people without us detecting the ships? The answer came from the science officer, her voice trembling. Admiral, I am detecting massive subterranean tunnel systems beneath the colonies. They go down for kilometers. The colonies were built on top of underground cities. They did not evacuate to ships. They just went deeper. A cold feeling settled in Thexanor's stomach. How long would it take to build something like that? Years. Maybe decades of preparation. They built their colonies with evacuation in mind, Thexanor said quietly. From the very beginning, they planned for this. Sir, we have a problem, the sensor officer interrupted. I am detecting weapons platforms activating throughout the system. Hundreds of them. They were hidden, cold and silent. We missed them in our initial scans. The tactical display lit up with red markers. They were everywhere. Behind asteroids, in orbital debris fields disguised as mining equipment and communication relays. Each one was now powering up, locking targeting solutions on the coalition fleet. Evasive maneuvers. Thexanor shouted, but it was too late. The hidden platforms opened fire, not with the simple missiles the defense stations had used, but with weapons that bent light and struck through shields as if they were not there. Ships began reporting damage. The Vaxian cruiser Pride of Empire lost power and began drifting. A Chorus collective destroyer simply vanished in a flash of light that left no debris. Return fire. All ships, return fire. The coalition fleet fought back, but they were in disarray, still in formation for an orbital bombardment, not a real battle. Ships collided, trying to maneuver. Friendly fire incidents flashed across the tactical net. The careful formation that looked so impressive an hour ago had become a weakness. Admiral, we are receiving another transmission, the communications officer said. It is from Earth. Put it through. This time a different human appeared. An older man in a military uniform, his face lined with age but his eyes sharp and cold. This is Fleet Admiral Chen of the Earth Defense Force. You have attacked our civilians. We offered you peace. We offered you negotiation. We offered you time to reconsider. You chose violence. Very well. You will have violence. The old admiral leaned forward slightly. But understand this. We are not your enemy because we want to be. We are your enemy because you have given us no choice. We will accept nothing less than your unconditional surrender. You have 72 hours to withdraw from human space and submit to interstellar tribunal. If you refuse, we will come for you. You are surrounded, Thexanor shouted at the screen. You have no fleet. Your colonies are defenseless. Admiral Chen's expression did not change. Are we? Look again. The long-range sensors finally cleared from the interference of the battle. What they showed made Thexanor's blood run cold. Ships were emerging from FTL all around them. Hundreds of ships. Human ships. They must have been waiting, hidden in nearby systems, ready to jump the moment the attack began. But these were not. The small patrol ships and freighters the intelligence reports had described. These were warships. Real warships. Larger than anything humans had shown the galaxy before. Their hulls were dark, almost invisible against the void, covered in angles and surfaces that seemed to drink light. Where did they come from? Someone whispered on the bridge. They lied, Thexanor said, understanding blooming like poison in his mind. All this time they showed us cargo ships and called them warships. They showed us patrol craft and called them their fleet. They let us think they were weak. The human warships were not moving in formation. They moved like hunters, each one independent, unpredictable. They were spreading out, cutting off retreat routes, herding the coalition fleet like animals. "Admiral, what are your orders?" asked the tactical officer. Thexnor looked at the tactical display. 600 coalition ships now scattered and confused. Maybe 300 human warships fresh and coordinated. And below them, 3 colony worlds that were not prizes to be won but traps that had already closed. "Send a message to all ships," he said, his voice hollow. "Prepare to withdraw. We need to regroup, reassess the situation." Should we accept the human surrender terms? Thexnor thought about Admiral Chen's cold eyes, about colonies built with evacuation in mind, about warships hidden for years, waiting for this moment, about a species that planned for war while speaking of peace. "No," he said. "We withdraw to our own space. We tell the Council what we found here, and we prepare for what comes next." As the coalition fleet retreated, fighting through the human blockade, losing ships with every light second they gained, Thexnor finally understood what Vrath had tried to tell them. Humans had not been weak. They had been patient, and now they were done being patient. The war changed everything. Within a week, the galaxy learned what humanity meant by unconditional surrender. The humans did not send their fleets to meet the coalition in honorable battle. They did not issue challenges or fight for territory. Instead, they did something the coalition species found incomprehensible. They made it impossible to fight at all. On Vaxian Prime, the homeworld of Ambassador Krell's people, every computer system went dark for 6 hours. When they came back online, the planetary defense grid had been completely rewritten. Its targeting systems now recognized coalition warships as friendly civilian traffic and civilian traffic as enemy combatants. It took the Vaxians 3 days to fix it. By then, human ships had destroyed every military shipyard in their outer systems. The Chorus Collective discovered that their quantum communication network had been compromised. Every military message, every strategic plan, every fleet movement had been intercepted and read by human intelligence for the past 2 months. The humans had known everything before it happened. Some Chorus commanders refused to believe it. They thought it was psychological warfare, a trick. Then the humans broadcast their own private communications back to them, word for word. Entire fleet movements had to be cancelled because the humans knew exactly where they would be. The Kresh Dominion lost 6 colony worlds without a shot being fired. Human ships simply appeared in orbit and released automated drones that scattered across the surfaces. Within hours, every Kresh on those worlds became violently ill. Not dying, but too sick to fight, too sick to even stand. Human medical teams arrived shortly after, offering treatment in exchange for surrender. The Kresh later learned the drones had released a bioweapon specifically designed for Kresh physiology. It was harmless to every other species. The humans had weaponized genetics. On the bridge of his flagship, now limping back toward Vaxian space after another failed engagement, Admiral Thexnor watched the reports come in with growing horror. The coalition was not losing battles. They were being systematically dismantled. "How are they doing this?" he asked his senior staff. "They are outnumbered 3 to 1. Their technology should not be this advanced. Where did they get these weapons?" His intelligence officer, a Vaxian named Kor, pulled up a historical file. "Sir, I have been studying human history." "I think I know. Tell me." "Humans have been at war with themselves for their entire recorded history," Kor began. "Not just occasional conflicts, but constant, unending warfare. They have fought over territory, resources, religion, politics, and concepts we do not have words for. In their year 1945, they developed atomic weapons. They used them on their own species." Thexnor felt sick. "On themselves?" 2 cities. Hundreds of thousands dead in seconds. And that was not even their most destructive war. In what they call World War II, they killed over 60 million of their own people in 6 years. 60 million, sir. That is more than the total population of 12 coalition species combined. The bridge fell silent. Everyone was listening now. After that war, humans entered what they called the Cold War. 2 massive human nations aimed enough nuclear weapons at each other to destroy their entire planet several times over. They lived under the threat of extinction for 40 years. Every single day, they knew that one mistake could end their species. And yet they survived. They learned to fight wars without fighting. They mastered deception, espionage, psychological warfare, economic warfare. They learned to destroy enemies without firing a shot. Why are you telling me this? Thexnor asked quietly. Because we thought we were fighting soldiers, Kor said. We are not. We are fighting survivors. Humans know every possible way to kill because they have tried them all on each other. The weapons they are using on us are old ideas to them. The tactics we find shocking are lessons they learned centuries ago. A communication officer interrupted. Sir, we are receiving a transmission. It is from Earth. Put it through. A human woman appeared on screen. She was not wearing a military uniform. Instead, she wore simple civilian clothes, a dark suit that marked her as a diplomat or politician. Her name appeared on the screen. Ambassador Rebecca Okonkwo, Earth Diplomatic Corps. Admiral Thexnor, she said, her voice polite and professional. I am authorized to discuss terms for ending this conflict. You mean our surrender? Thexnor said bitterly. I mean the cessation of hostilities, she corrected. We do not want your surrender. We want you to stop fighting. What is the difference? Ambassador Okonkwo's expression softened with something that looked like genuine sadness. Admiral, my people have a saying. We have been to hell and back so many times we know all the shortcuts. We know what total war looks like. We know what it costs. We are trying very hard not to go there again. You are destroying us, Ithor, and we are stopping you from destroying us, she replied. There is a difference. We have not targeted civilian populations. We have not bombarded cities. We have not used our most destructive weapons.
Everything we have done has been
carefully calculated to minimize loss of life while maximizing military effectiveness, and the bioweapon on Kresh worlds makes them sick for 3 days with no lasting effects, she interrupted. We could have made it lethal. It would have been easier, actually. We chose not to. Every action we have taken has been reversible. Your defense networks can be restored. Your communication systems can be secured. The Kresh will fully recover. We have been fighting with one hand behind our back, Admiral. Then why? Why cripple us if you can destroy us? Ambassador Okonkwo leaned forward slightly. Because we remember what happens when you do not stop. We remember what happens when war becomes about extermination instead of resolution. We have been fighting for 6 weeks. In that time, total casualties on both sides are approximately 47,000. Do you know how many people died per day in some of our wars? More than that. Much more. She pulled up a holographic image. It showed a field of white markers, thousands upon thousands of them stretching to the horizon. This is a cemetery from one of our wars. Just one cemetery, Admiral. There are thousands more like it on Earth. Every marker represents a person who died because someone decided that total victory was more important than finding peace. We built these places to remember that lesson, to make sure we never forget what war actually costs. Thexnor stared at the image. What do you want from us? Stop fighting. Submit to tribunal for your violations of interstellar law. Pay reparations for the damages. Accept monitoring to ensure you do not try this again. And most importantly, learn from this. Learn that humanity is not weak because we prefer peace. We prefer peace because we know what the alternative is. And if we refuse, the ambassador's expression hardened, then we will do what we have been trying very hard not to do. We will show you what humans are capable of when we stop holding back. We will show you what we did to the Devourers, and we will hate ourselves for it because we know better. But we will do it anyway because you will have given us no choice. The screen went dark. Thexnor looked at his staff, at the damage report still streaming in, at the tactical displays showing human ships everywhere, controlling all the approaches to Coalition space, at the casualty lists that were growing but not as fast as they could be, as fast as they should be in a war this size. The humans were holding back. They were fighting a war with restraint, with rules, with mercy, and they were still winning. Send a message to the Coalition Council, he said quietly. Tell them I recommend we accept Earth's terms. Tell them the humans are not like the Devourers. They are worse. The Devourers only knew how to destroy. Humans know how to destroy and choose not to. That makes them more dangerous than anything we have ever faced. Somewhere in deep space, Commander Vrath received the news. He sat in his small quarters and he thought about Captain Santos, who had smiled like she should be teaching children. He thought about human soldiers singing as they died to save people who had mocked them. They tried to be better, he whispered to the empty room. You should have let them. The war ended 3 days after Vrath's meeting with the Coalition Council. One by one, the remaining species surrendered. The terms were broadcast across the galaxy, and species that had not even been involved in the conflict read them with shock. Humanity demanded reparations, but not territorial conquest. They demanded accountability, but not executions. They demanded oversight, but not occupation. The defeated species would be allowed to keep their governments, their sovereignty, their dignity. They would pay for the damages they caused. They would submit to monitoring. They would accept human observers in their military command structures for a period of 20 years. But they would not be destroyed. The galaxy could not understand it. Throughout history, victors took everything from the defeated. That was the natural order. The strong dominated the weak. Yet humanity, having demonstrated power beyond anything the coalition possessed, was choosing restraint. Commander Vrath received a personal invitation from Earth's government. They wanted him to visit, to be honored as a hero, to see their world with his own eyes. He almost refused. The guilt of surviving when so many humans had died for him still ate at his soul. But something in the invitation's wording made him reconsider. "We want to show you why we fight," it said. His ship approached Earth on a clear morning. From orbit, it was beautiful. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds swirling in patterns that looked almost alive. He could see cities, huge sprawling things that covered hundreds of kilometers. But he also saw vast stretches of untouched wilderness, forests and plains and deserts. Humanity had the technology to cover every centimeter of their planet in civilization, but they chose not to. A small shuttle met him at the orbital station. The pilot was a young human woman with dark hair and friendly eyes. "Commander Vrath, I am Lieutenant Chen. I will be your escort during your visit." "Chen?" Vrath asked. "Any relation to Admiral Chen?" "My grandmother," she said with a smile. "She sends her regards. Said you would probably be grumpy and difficult." Despite himself, Vrath felt his mandibles twitch in what passed for a smile among his people. "Your grandmother is wise." They descended to the surface, landing at a facility outside a city called Washington. Vrath was surprised when, instead of taking him to government buildings or military installations, Lieutenant Chen drove him to a large park. "Where are we going?" he asked. "You will see," she said. The park was peaceful. Trees lined the paths, their leaves rustling in a gentle breeze. Human families walked together, children playing and laughing. It was hard to believe this planet had just finished fighting a war. Lieutenant Chen led him to a long wall of black stone. It stretched for what seemed like hundreds of meters, covered in names. Thousands of names, tens of thousands, carved into the stone in neat, precise rows. "This is the Vietnam Veterans Memorial," she explained. "These are the names of Americans who died in a war we fought against ourselves in a way. A complicated conflict in the 20th century. There are over 58,000 names here." Vrath approached the wall slowly. He ran his hand over the carved letters. Each name represented a life, a person who had family and friends and dreams. All gone. "Why do you build these?" he asked quietly. "Why do you carve the names of the dead into stone?" "So we remember," Lieutenant Chen said. "So we never forget what war costs. This is just one memorial, Commander. We have hundreds of them. Thousands if you count the local ones in small towns. Every war, every conflict, we build something to remember the dead. Not to glorify what they did, but to mourn what they lost." She led him to another memorial nearby. This one was different. A field of white markers stretching in perfect rows across acres of ground. "Arlington National Cemetery," she said. "Over 400,000 people buried here. Soldiers from every major war in American history." "And this is just one country's dead?" Vrath asked, overwhelmed. "Just one country. There are cemeteries like this all over Earth. Millions of graves. Millions of people who died because someone thought war was the answer." They walked in silence among the graves. Vrath noticed that each marker had flowers placed in front of it, fresh and carefully arranged. "Who brings the flowers?" he asked. "Families, friends, sometimes strangers who just want to honor the sacrifice. We have a tradition here. On certain days every year, volunteers come and place flags or flowers at every single grave. Hundreds of thousands of people, making sure none of these soldiers are forgotten." Lieutenant Chen stopped at one grave in particular. "This is where my great-grandfather is buried. He died in World War II, the big one I am sure you have heard about. He was 23 years old. I never met him, obviously, but my grandmother told me stories. He wanted to be a teacher. He loved mathematics and children. Instead, he died on a beach in France, shot while trying to reach cover." Her voice remained steady, but Vrath could see the emotion in her eyes. My grandmother says he was gentle, kind, that he cried at sad movies and rescued injured birds. War made him into a killer. He hated it, but he went anyway because someone had to stop the fascists. He did what was necessary, and it destroyed the person he wanted to be. The Coalition Council met an emergency session on their emergency backup station after human cyber attacks made their primary chambers unusable. The mood was grim. 3 of the 6 attacking species had already surrendered. The remaining 3 were barely holding together, their economies crippling under the weight of a war they could not win. Ambassador Krell looked older than he had just weeks ago. His forearms hung limply at his sides as he addressed the remaining delegates. We need to understand what happened. How did we miscalculate so badly? We need Vrath, said Prime Speaker Illith of the Kresh Dominion, her voice weak from the after effects of the human bioweapon. He tried to warn us. He knows them. We need him to tell us how to fight them. Vrath wants nothing to do with us, Krell said. He made that clear when he walked out. Then we beg, Illith replied. We grovel if we must, because if we do not understand what we are facing, this war will end with our complete subjugation. It took 3 days of increasingly desperate messages before Vrath agreed to meet with them. He arrived at their emergency station in a small battered transport ship, alone. When he entered the council chamber, the delegates barely recognized him. He looked ancient now, worn down by something more than age. You want to know how to fight them? Vrath said without preamble. The answer is simple. You cannot, not now. Not after what you did. There must be a way, Krell insisted. They are just one species. We are 6. We have more ships, more resources, more territory. Shut up, Vrath said quietly, but the force behind the words made Krell fall silent. Sit down, all of you, and let me tell you about the Devourer Protocol. The delegates sat. Vrath remained standing, leaning heavily on his cane. When I fought with humans against the Devourers, I thought I understood war, he began. I had been a soldier for 60 years. I had fought in 7 major campaigns. I thought I knew everything there was to know about combat, strategy, sacrifice. Then I saw what humans do when they have no choice. He paused, his eyes distant with memory. After Captain Santos died to save my battalion, I was reassigned to the Fleet Command. I worked directly with human strategic planning. That is when I learned about the protocol. What protocol? Asked Illith. The Devourer Protocol. What humans activate when they face an existential threat, when surrender means extinction and victory means survival. Vrath pulled up a holographic display. Let me show you what I learned about human history. The display showed Earth rotating slowly. Humans evolved on a death world. Not the most dangerous planet in the galaxy, but dangerous enough. Predators, diseases, natural disasters. They survived by being adaptable and by working together. But their greatest threat was not nature. It was themselves. Images flashed across the display. Ancient battles, medieval wars, modern conflicts. Humans spent most of their history fighting each other. Not just fighting, understanding every possible way to kill. They studied it. They wrote books about it. They built entire philosophies around warfare. Sun Tzu's Art of War, Clausewitz's On War. They treated combat like a science. We know this, Krell said impatiently. Your intelligence officer already told us about their violent history. You know the facts, Vrath said. You do not understand what they mean. Watch this. The display showed a human city, primitive and ancient. This is Carthage, destroyed by Rome over 2,000 years ago. The Romans did not just conquer it. They burned it to the ground, killed or enslaved every person, and spread salt on the earth so nothing would grow there. Total warfare. Complete annihilation. More images appeared. This is Sherman's march during the American Civil War. They burned everything in a path hundreds of kilometers wide. This is the bombing of Dresden in World War II. A city destroyed in a single night. This is Hiroshima. This is Nagasaki. These are the killing fields of Cambodia. This is Rwanda. This is Syria. The delegates watched in growing horror as the images continued. The scale of destruction was incomprehensible. These were not military targets. These were cities, homes, families. Humans know how to commit genocide, Vrath said flatly. They have done it to themselves over and over. They have perfected it. They have industrial-scale murder documented in their history books. They teach their children about it in school so they will never forget. Then why do they not use these tactics on us? Illith asked quietly. Because they learned, Vrath replied. After World War II, after atomic weapons, after they stood on the edge of destroying their entire species, humans made a choice. They decided that just because they could do something did not mean they should. They created laws. They built international courts. They made treaties. They tried to become better than their history. He pulled up another image. This one showed a vast underground facility, kilometers of tunnels and chambers carved into solid rock. This is under the colony New Hope, and Perseverance, and Journey's End. Every human colony is built like this. They call them deep havens. And do you know when they started building them? Silence, 70 years ago, before they even had FTL travel. Before they met a single alien species, they were already planning for the possibility of war in space. They were already building evacuation systems, redundant defenses, hidden weapons platforms. They were already thinking about how to survive an attack. Vrath's voice grew harder. That is the Devourer Protocol. It is not just a military strategy. It is a complete societal transformation. When humans face extinction, every single one of them becomes part of the war effort. Their factories stop making consumer goods and start making weapons. Their scientists stop researching medicine and start researching weapons. Their artists stop creating beauty and start creating propaganda. Their children stop playing and start training. Their elderly stop retiring and start working. Every human, from birth to death, becomes a tool for survival. That is impossible, Krell protested. No society can maintain that level of mobilization. They did it before, Vrath said. In World War II, they sustained total mobilization for 6 years. And that was when they were divided into competing nations. Now they are unified. Now they have centuries of technological advancement. Now they have learned from every mistake they ever made. He pulled up casualty figures from the current war. Look at these numbers. Really look at them. In 6 weeks of warfare, 47,000 casualties total across both sides. Do you know how many humans died per day in World War II? An average of 20,000. Every single day for 6 years. The humans are fighting you with less than 1% of their historical casualty tolerance. The words hit the delegates like physical blows. They are holding back, Vrath continued. They are fighting you with one hand tied behind their back, trying desperately not to activate the protocol. Because once it activates, they cannot turn it off. Once humans commit to total war, they do not stop until the enemy is completely destroyed or they are dead. There is no middle ground. That is what happened to the Devourers. The Devourers were defeated by coalition forces, Krell said, but his voice was uncertain. The Devourers were defeated by humanity, Vrath corrected. The coalition helped. We provided ships and soldiers. But the final offensive, the one that destroyed the Devourer home cluster, was purely human. They sent 60 ships on a one-way mission into the heart of enemy territory. The mission parameters gave them a 4% chance of success and a 96% chance of complete annihilation. They went anyway, Illith whispered. They volunteered, Vrath said. 10,000 humans volunteered for a mission where they would almost certainly die. They had to turn away volunteers. The ships that returned, all 3 of them, carried a total of 47 survivors. Those survivors were celebrated as heroes, but every human knows the real heroes were the ones who did not come back. He looked at each delegate in turn. That is what you are facing. A species that will sacrifice everything to survive. A species that has already done it before and will do it again without hesitation. And you triggered the protocol when you attacked their civilians. How do we stop it? Krell asked desperately. You surrender, Vrath said simply. Completely and unconditionally. You accept every term they offer. You submit to tribunal. You pay reparations. You do whatever they ask. Because if you do not, if you keep fighting, you will force them to activate the full protocol, and then there will be no mercy, no negotiation, no quarter given. There will only be war until you are extinct or they are. He turned toward the door. I told you once, never disturb the Earthborn. You did not listen. Now you live with the consequences. Will they forgive us? Illith called after him. Vrath stopped. That is the terrible thing, he said without turning around. They probably will. Humans forgive easily. That is why they are so dangerous. They forgive, but they never forget. They will let you live, let you rebuild, let you join them as equals. But they will never trust you again. And they will never, ever let you threaten them again. He left them sitting in silence, contemplating a future where humanity held all the power and chose to show mercy. Somehow that was more terrifying than any threat could have been. She looked at Vrath directly. That is why we build memorials, Commander. Not to celebrate war, but to remember that every soldier was a person first. Every name on that wall, every grave in this cemetery represents someone's destroyed future, someone's lost potential. War does not just kill bodies, it kills possibilities. They drove next to a museum. Inside, Vrath saw displays of human history, the weapons they had used, the battles they had fought. But the focus was not on victory. The exhibits showed the suffering, the cost, the horror. There were letters from soldiers to their families, photographs of ruined cities, testimonies from survivors. It was not propaganda celebrating military might. It was a warning about military necessity. We teach our children about war, Lieutenant Chen explained as they walked through the exhibits, but not to make them want to fight. We teach them so they understand why we try so hard not to fight. Every human child learns about the Holocaust, about atomic bombs, about genocides and massacres. We make sure they know what humans are capable of doing to each other. We make sure they know how easily civilization can collapse into barbarism. You teach them to fear war, Vrath said. We teach them to respect it, she corrected. Fear makes you avoid something. Respect makes you understand it. We respect war enough to know when it is necessary and when it is not. We respect it enough to prepare for it while working to prevent it. We respect it enough to know that sometimes you have to fight, but you should never want to. She led him to a section of the museum dedicated to the Devourer War. There were images of Captain Santos, of the human soldiers who had died saving Vrath's battalion. There were their names, their faces, their stories. Captain Santos was a teacher before the war, Lieutenant Chen said softly. She taught history at a university. She specialized in peace studies, actually. The irony is not lost on us. She joined the military when the Devourers appeared, because she understood that sometimes teachers have to become soldiers, but she never stopped being a teacher. Even at the end, even dying in that canyon, she was teaching. Teaching her soldiers how to be brave. Teaching your people that humanity could be trusted. Teaching the galaxy what we are capable of when we have to be. Vrath's voice cracked when he spoke. She smiled at me. Right before the battle, she smiled like everything would be fine. That was probably the hardest thing she ever did, Lieutenant Chen said. Smiling when you know you are about to die. Staying calm when you are terrified. That is not the absence of fear. That is courage, and she did it so you would not lose hope. They stood together in silence, looking at Captain Santos's photograph. She looked young, happy, alive. Nothing like the desperate, doomed soldiers Vrath remembered from that last transmission. Why did you show me all this? Vrath asked finally. Why bring me to memorials and museums instead of military parades and victory celebrations? Because we wanted you to understand, Lieutenant Chen said. You warned the coalition not to attack us. They did not listen, but you tried. That matters to us. We wanted you to see that we are not bloodthirsty conquerors. We are survivors who have learned hard lessons. We showed mercy to the coalition not because we are weak, but because we remember what it is like to show no mercy. We remember what total war does. We remember the cost. She turned to face him fully. You lost parts of yourself saving humans. We have not forgotten that. Every human child learns about the Devourer War. They learn about the alien soldiers who fought beside us. They learn your name, Commander. You are a hero here, not because you were strong, but because you were willing to die for people who were not your own. That is the best part of humanity, and you showed it to us when we were strangers. We will never forget that. Vrath felt something break inside him, some wall he had built around his grief. I should have died in that canyon, he said quietly. Captain Santos should have lived. She was worth more than me. No, Lieutenant Chen said firmly. You both had worth. She chose to save you because that is what humans do. We save people, even when it costs us everything. That is not a waste. That is the entire point. We do not measure the value of a life by what we get back. We save people because it is right. She placed a hand on his arm, gentle despite the alien difference between them. You lived, Commander. You tried to stop another war. You warned them. You did what Captain Santos would have wanted. You honored her sacrifice by trying to save lives. That matters. They left the museum as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Lieutenant Chen drove him back to his shuttle, but before he boarded, she gave him something. A small stone, smooth and dark. This is from the memorial wall, she said. We make copies for visitors. Carry it with you. Remember that humanity knows war. We know it intimately. We know every terrible thing it does. And we choose peace anyway whenever we can. That is our strength. Not that we can fight, but that we would rather not. Vrath held the stone carefully. What happens now? With the coalition species? We help them rebuild, she said simply. We monitor them, yes. We make sure they do not threaten us again. But we also trade with them, share technology with them, include them in our councils. We turn enemies into friends if they let us. Because that is the only way to stop the cycle. You cannot end war by winning it. You can only end war by making peace. The galaxy thinks you are soft, Vrath said. They think mercy is weakness. Let them think that, Lieutenant Chen said with a small smile. It makes them underestimate us. And when they do, we can surprise them by being exactly what we appear to be. People who genuinely want peace. That confuses them more than any weapon. Vrath returned to his ship, the stone clutched in his hand. From orbit, he looked down at Earth one more time. A world that had known more war than any other he had studied. A species that had perfected every form of death and destruction. And yet they built memorials instead of monuments. They taught their children to fear war instead of glorify it. They chose mercy when vengeance would have been easier. He began recording a new message for the Galactic Archives. This one would be different from his warning. This one would be a lesson. I am Commander Vrath, he began. I fought beside humans once. I have warned the galaxy to never disturb the Earthborn. But I want to make something clear. I do not warn you because humans are monsters. I warn you because they are not. I warn you because they will give you every chance to make peace before they make war. I warn you because they will show you mercy even when you do not deserve it. I warn you because their greatest weapon is not their technology or their tactics. It is their choice to be better than their history. He paused, looking at the stone in his hand. The most dangerous warrior is not the one who loves violence. It is the one who understands violence and chooses peace anyway. It is the one who has been to hell and decided to build heaven instead. That is humanity. They have seen the worst of what they can be, and they choose every day to be better. That is why you should never disturb them, not because they will destroy you, though they can, but because they will save you, forgive you, and make you part of something better. And you will spend the rest of your life knowing that you tried to destroy people who only wanted to be your friends. He sent the message and set course for home. Behind him, Earth rotated slowly in the darkness of space. A blue marble covered in memorials to the dead and hope for the living. A world that had learned to choose peace not from weakness but from strength. Not from ignorance of war, but from intimate knowledge of its cost. And across the galaxy, species who had thought they understood power began to learn a new lesson. The strongest species in the universe was the one that knew how to be gentle.